Treaty of Silence. Earth surrendered yesterday. But no one seems to have told the humans. The words echoed through the command deck of the Council flagship Tilraka, leaving a silence more deafening than any explosion. Admiral Zor stood hunched forward, his muscular, scaled arms bracing the edge of the tactical console, bulbous eyes fixated on the swirling storm of red indicators lighting up the holographic projection above them. "They're not retreating," Captain Roker whispered, claws nervously clicking against the metal desk. "They're organizing." Zor didn't answer. He didn't need to. The display said it all. Across 32 separate sectors previously marked for Council enforcement, human fleets were moving with surgical precision. Not fleeing. Not resisting. Maneuvering. "Orders, Admiral," came a voice from the comms pit. Zor's thick tail thudded against the floor as he turned sharply. "Show me the transmission logs. Every message from the humans since yesterday. I want visual confirmation of the treaty's acceptance." Within seconds, a projection shimmered to life. There, in perfect clarity, stood Ambassador Henry Lockcatch. Tall, composed, wrapped in the pristine black and silver formal wear of Earth's diplomatic corps. His face was unreadable, but that smile, that damn human smile, subtle and maddening. "On behalf of Earth and her colonies," Lockcatch said, hands folded behind his back, "we formally accept the terms laid out by the Galactic Council. Oversight of military assets, strategic compliance, and economic transparency, all will be respected." Zor growled. "Play the fleet orders, post-treaty." Another screen. This one labeled, EFS Logistics Channel, Post-Treaty Transmissions. Human commander speaking calmly, issuing fleet-wide orders. "Prepare Operation Serenity Shield. Maintain non-lethal protocol. Compliance with Article 14C enforced." Roker's claws skittered again. Article 14C. Zor's upper lip twitched. Obscure clause. Hadn't been cited in over a millennia. Something about enforcement delegation when Council forces are underperforming. But we're not underperforming. Aren't we? Zor gestured angrily to the dozens of highlighted zones. Pirates in sectors Delta, 7 and 11V, smugglers in the Rowan Belt, unchecked civil disputes in 9 Council-governed territories. "Tell me, Captain, are we performing?" Roker looked away. "Get me the human envoy," Zor snarled. When Ambassador Lockcatch appeared on-screen moments later, he was seated in his orbital station's lush conference suite, a warm drink steaming beside him, fingers laced before him. "Admiral Zor," he said smoothly, "to what do I owe the pleasure? You mock us. Your fleet defies the treaty you signed." "I assure you," Lockcatch replied, unfazed, "we're adhering to the treaty's language exactly. You granted oversight to the Council. The Council failed to provide security, so Article 14C allows us to ensure peace until you regain operational competence. That clause is symbolic. It's binding." Zor slammed a fist against the console, shaking the frame. "You twist words." Lockcatch smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We simply read them carefully." Silence hung heavy. "You're humiliating the Council," Zor said finally. "We're complying. If that's humiliating, perhaps you should reconsider the treaty you wrote." Zor cut the feed. Far across the void, Human Fleet Commander Garen Velt issued his next series of orders aboard the EFS Vigilant Mercy. His second, Lieutenant Niha Cavan, adjusted her headset. Targets locked. 3 pirate cruisers in the Tratax corridor. Non-lethal strike, disable only, Garen instructed. "We are peacekeepers." Within minutes, the cruisers drifted powerless, their systems offline. No casualties. No glory. Just the ruthless efficiency of a species that had learned the rules of the game, and turned them into weapons. "Fleet reports coming in, sir. Council patrols are retreating from Sector 3B. Log it. Send them a full mission report, time-stamped and annotated per treaty protocol." Niha blinked. "Sir, do you really think this will work?" All of it? Garen offered a tight smile. We don't need to win a war. Just prove the council can't run their own show. On the council homeworld, a dozen high councillors gathered in emergency session. This is outrageous, Councillor Varel hissed. They hide behind paperwork. They use paperwork, another corrected. And now the other species are watching. Worst of all, Zor thought, they weren't defying the council. Humanity had surrendered, yes. But the game hadn't ended. It had only just begun. Trial by charter. For days after the first enforcement reports, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, an immense obsidian amphitheater surrounded by floating light hubs, buzzed with a nervous energy. Ambassador Henry Lockcatch stood alone at the heart of the semicircle, bathed in cool violet light that shone down like the judgment of gods. Above him, tiers of representatives from over 200 species loomed, some seated in silence, others whispering furiously. Rarely had the full council convened. Rarer still was a subordinate species called to justify itself for, following orders. Ambassador Lockcatch, hissed Councillor Varel, a long-necked Vekari whose scales shimmered with agitation. The council demands explanation. Your fleets are disrupting order, disabling patrol vessels, and inciting unease across council territory. This is not compliance. This is provocation. Lockcatch bowed slightly. With respect, Councillor, the council granted oversight. We are assisting that oversight in accordance with Article 14c. Your own charter is clear: if primary security forces cannot maintain control, secondary entities must assume enforcement. Councillor Drawn, a massive, tusked Orinid, thumped a fist against his pedestal. We never expected humans to interpret the treaty literally. I understand, Lockcatch replied calmly. Yet in every sector we have intervened, criminal activity has dropped by 82%. Not one life lost. Not one treaty violation. We simply filled a void. Laughter echoed, dry, bitter, from Admiral Zor, seated beside Varel, and humiliated our fleets in the process. Lockcatch inclined his head, only in contrast. Murmurs rippled across the tiers. Dozens of eyes flicked toward their own sector reports. Piracy had indeed lessened. Smugglers were being handed over alive. Even internal disputes were being cooled by diplomatic advisories drafted by Earth's civil teams. And all of it was happening under their laws, not outside them. Councillor Varel leaned forward, his voice tightening. Your behavior challenges the Council's authority. We cannot allow insubordination disguised as interpretation. Then perhaps the interpretation is flawed, Lockcatch said softly. We are open to legal arbitration. Take the case before the Galactic Judiciary. A stunned silence followed. Zor jolted. You're threatening litigation. Against the Council. Not threatening. Offering. The judiciary is bound to your laws. If we are wrong, they will say so. If we are not. His words trailed off, but the implication thundered through the chamber. Humanity was daring the Council to test its own integrity. Daring it to face the laws it so often imposed on others. From the lower tiers, murmurs turned to quiet support. A few representatives from mid-tier species nodded subtly. The humans were becoming an inconvenient symbol of accountability. Varel hissed again. We will not take this matter to court. Then let us continue until you are ready to resume your responsibilities, Lockcatch said gently. Zor stood. Ambassador, these games will end in fire if they do not end in court. Lockcatch met his gaze. We have committed no aggression. But threats from the Council will be documented. More murmurs. Some shocked. Some approving. A quiet tremor of fear moved through the higher tiers. Not because humanity had violated protocol, but because they hadn't, and still they advanced. You may continue to enforce peace, Varel said stiffly. But know this, any further embarrassment, and your species will face consequences. Lockcatch smiled. I would advise the Council to consider whether its own reflection in the mirror is the source of its discomfort. He turned and walked out, leaving silence in his wake. The silent offensive. In the 3 weeks following the Council session, human operations spread like frost through the unpatrolled corridors of space. No official declarations were made. No fleets were mobilized en masse. Yet the signs were unmistakable, order was returning, and the banners carrying it bore Earth's emblem. On the deck of the EFS Beacons Trust, Commander Selric Hale monitored the silent battlefield of Sector Omega-12. Beside him, Operations Officer Yasmin Tella read from a scroll of live feeds. Pirate convoy neutralized. 6 transports disabled with EMP web drones. No casualties. Rescue pods dispatched. Hale nodded, arms folded. Tag each hull. Documentation package and treaty clause embedded in beacon. Already uploaded, Commander. By the end of the day, 27 vessels floated dark and powerless in a region the Council had declared irreclaimable a year prior. Hale's team had reclaimed it without firing a shot. But Earth's quiet campaign was not merely tactical. It was infectious. On the Yadari world of Sulcry 6, Regional Governor Saranda, a once neutral species, announced the activation of Article 14C protocols. His reasoning? If humans could police lawless voids without bloodshed, so could they. On a relay moon near the Pollux Divide, a contingent of Kaldurian diplomats met with human liaisons for bureaucratic workshops. Treaty enforcement via procedural compliance. Subclause exploitation for peaceful intervention. What began as humanity's meticulous adherence to Council policy had evolved into an ideological export. They weren't just restoring order. They were teaching others how to. At Galactic Council headquarters, Councillor Varel's office buzzed with rising urgency. 6 species, Varel spat. 6. Following the humans' example. Invoking clauses we didn't even know were in the charter. We knew, Admiral Zor said grimly. We just never expected anyone to weaponize them. How are they doing this? They don't even have jurisdiction in half these regions. Zor tapped a report. They cite Article 14C, Section 9, temporary assumption of regulatory enforcement may occur in the absence of effective patrol within 2 lunar cycles of an acknowledged breach. They're using the gaps in our own surveillance logs, Varel muttered, and they're winning. Zor stepped aside to reveal a transmission feed, pirates surrendering to human ships. Smugglers begging for tribunal hearings. Independent colonies flying human standard peace markers, no shots fired, Zor said flatly. No violations logged. This isn't a war, it's a paper insurrection, Zor finished, and it's spreading. In a remote command center aboard the EFS Hamilton's Grace, Ambassador Henry Lockcatch watched as transmission after transmission poured in from Allied fleets. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He simply scrolled, verified, and documented. Behind him, Commander Velt entered quietly. You've seen the Kaldurians' new enforcement board? I did. They're using our formats. Is that a good thing? It's the right thing, Lockcatch answered. The Council wanted control. We offered them structure. They refused. So now, we show them what structure can do. And throughout the galaxy, the silent offensive continued, not with thunder, but with paperwork. The Compliance Rebellion. The Galactic Council, bruised and cornered, struck back the only way it still could, through reform. In a late-night emergency session, hidden from public broadcast, they ratified a sweeping amendment package to the Interstellar Charter. Article 14C was to be rewritten, narrowed, locked down under stricter activation requirements. Language was trimmed, exceptions removed, oversight clauses buried beneath layers of approval mechanisms. Councillor Varel called it restoration. Admiral Zor called it containment. But Ambassador Henry Lockcatch had another name for it, desperation. They're rewriting the rules, Henry, Commander Velt said as he handed the report across the meeting table aboard EFS Highmark. Trying to seal the cracks. Logcatch read the document in silence. Then he passed it to Legal Officer Tamira Ashen, who already had 3 annotations ready. Their changes violate the founding tenets of the Sovereign Equity Charter, she said flatly. And 2 clauses breach judicial precedents from the Sarek resolution of Cycle 3314. Logcatch nodded once. Prepare a response. Open transmission. Maximum transparency. When the broadcast went live, it was relayed not just to the Council, but to every member species, every regional command, every neutral station. Logcatch's voice echoed through the stars. We were told to follow your laws. We did. We followed every letter, every clause, every precedent. Now, when others begin to follow them too, you choose to change the rules. Not to improve them, but to protect yourselves. He paused, eyes calm. Resolute. This isn't rebellion. This is revelation. And your fear proves we were right to read so carefully. The fallout was immediate. Across hundreds of sectors, Council delegations awoke to peaceful crowds outside their embassies. Diplomats. Students. Logistics officers. No weapons. Just data slates filled with law. On the planetary capital of Tyros 9, 14 species jointly filed a motion to delay the Council's reform, citing judicial violations. On Venter's Ring, the entire administrative staff of the Council's Peacekeeping Bureau resigned, replaced by human-trained volunteers. The Council, long the apex of galactic order, found itself surrounded not by fleets, but by expectations it could no longer meet. Inside the Grand Chamber, Councillor Varel stood one last time. Ambassador Logcatch, he said bitterly, you've torn down centuries of governance. Logcatch stood alone in the silence. No, Councillor. We've held up a mirror. And asked you to see. Zor, older now, tired, said nothing. He only stared. In the weeks that followed, the reforms failed. Under pressure from allied species, the Council conceded to judicial review. Oversight protocols were revised again, but this time, under watchful eyes. Humanity stepped back, fulfilling their promise. And yet, in the corridors of governance, across 1,000 worlds, when things needed fixing, people asked, what would the humans do? Not because humans ruled. But because humans had remembered the rules, and made everyone else remember them too. The end. Echoes of submission. In a vaulted archive deep beneath Earth's Interstellar Diplomatic Academy in Geneva, the lights never turned off. Not since the treaty was signed. 6 months earlier, the treaty's language had been dissected by a task force of legal historians, military analysts, and AI-laced bureaucrats. Article 14C hadn't just been a loophole. It had been a ladder, buried in the foundation of galactic law. Back then, senior archivist Mariel Doss had warned her colleagues, this isn't surrender. It's entry. And we're going to climb. Now, her team's research had become the blueprint for Earth's new doctrine, structured enforcement. Meanwhile, on the human-allied world of Marni's, 4, Regional Governor Tenrak Ayak, a feline-featured dignitary, stood before a new public assembly. Human instructors, both military and civilian, were helping the Marnisians build their own enforcement guild. Fully compliant. Fully legal. They gave us rules, Tenrak told the crowd. So we learned them. Now we show them we understand them better than they do. In a distant sector, the Council's Inspectorate General finally uncovered the depth of humanity's preparation. Analyst Yev Drick, a lanky Cybraxian archivist, trembled as he outlined his findings before Varel and Zor. Their team filed over 37,000 requests for Council precedents before the treaty. Obscure rulings, border skirmish footnotes, annulled amendments, every dusty corner of the Charter. They built a comprehensive map of every contradiction, exception, and forgotten clause. Zor's jaw clenched. We gave them the ammunition. They made it into a doctrine, Varel whispered. Reports flooded in from systems across the spiral arm, joint enforcement pacts, educational treaties, non-aggression clauses rewritten with Earth's guidance. Commander Velt and Ambassador Lockcatch stood on the balcony of a civilian administration facility orbiting Sargosa 3. Below them, local ships buzzed like insects, each one bearing human-coded compliance badges. "We're not the center," Lockcatch said quietly. "What? We're not becoming rulers. We're becoming reference points." "And the Council?" Lockcatch sighed. Still clinging to the myth that control means command. He turned away from the viewport. Behind him, a dozen newly trained auditors from different species sat at terminals, studying legislative framework modules from Earth. "They feared we'd rebel with weapons," Lockcatch murmured. "But we rebelled with standards." On the Council homeworld, the chamber doors remained closed more often than open. Debates turned into delays. Declarations dissolved into internal reviews. Every attempt to punish humanity created more procedural contradictions. And all the while, order spread. Not because of strength. Because of submission, performed so perfectly, it became indistinguishable from leadership.